Guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Raw and Uncovered Truths of the Awakened Soul with Nicole and Kristi. And I'm going to pass it on over to Kristi for our message for today.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. So, I really love this message today because it talks all about being in the midst of transformation. So, it lets me know that there is light at the end of the tunnel, which is very exciting for this month. So, let me go ahead and begin. The angel message in the midst of transformation, surrendering to the unknown. When the journey shifts and the road is obscured, veiled in mist, shifting beyond recognition, that is when your soul truly awakens. In this sacred fog is when transformation takes root, not in clarity, but in surrender. You were never meant to control the unfolding of your destiny. Control is an illusion. The grasp of the mind trying to shape what your spirit only understands. The more you resist the unknown, the heavier the burden becomes. But the moment you release, the moment you stop clenching so tightly to what was, the mist begins to part. Your transformation is not something you force. It is something you allow. Like the tides that does not ask for permission to rise and fall, your soul knows the rhythm of its becoming. Trust in it. Learn in the uncertainty. Let go, not into emptiness, but into grace. What is waiting for you beyond the mist is not just change, it's an awakening. Affirmation. I trust that the unfolding of my journey is a release of control and need. I embrace the unknown. In surrender, I find strength. In uncertainty, I discover clarity. What is meant for me will find me, and I will walk forward with faith, knowing that every step, seen and unseen, is guiding me to my highest good.
So, wow, because that's kind of on point with the five things, 5 sheets of paper that I have to go over today from all my downloads. And basically, yeah, it's the core breakdown of how to let like the scroll unroll while you're being human as fuck and like just letting it go, letting it happen, like going with the flow. So, of course, angel message is always on point with what we have to talk about today. Um, so I guess we could start with the fact that yes, we touched on this last episode. So we're still in the threshold of the, March purging versus the April receiving and activating. So it basically feels like, we're still covered in March like stardust and, but we could like see like the opening and like the blinding light, the blinding golden light of
Right.
April.
That's how I feel. Like you're starting to see now the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
The
Like I said, the
process.
angel message was totally on point, like totally, totally on point. Um,
Yeah, well, they know.
they do know, they do know. So let's see, I don't even know where to begin. So yes, Mercury went direct yesterday. So as we're filming this, and I think I'm going to drop it today as well. So today is April 8th. Um, so Mercury went direct as of yesterday. I'm going to be honest, did not feel a shift in the energy of Mercury going direct at all.
I really didn't yet. I really didn't yet either. I thought I did. And when we were talking yesterday, I'm like, I
Mhm.
felt like I felt it. And then I really had to sit back and think, no, I didn't, because old stuff is still repeating right now.
Well, that's kind of being in the threshold. I'm talking about electronic wise. I don't even feel the
Oh,
shift.
forget it. I don't even want to get it. I don't even want to get into that.
And like we just proved that, like what we were trying to sign on before, and Kristi's headset would have worked. So I mean that just like was the seal on the letter telling me that yeah, Mercury doesn't feel like it shifted.
No.
However, you also have like all of these trines, and again, not an astrological guru here, but there's like so many trines going on where it probably is replicating the energy anyway. And plus, we always have the post shadow phase, so you have that going on. However, we do have Venus going direct, I believe, on Saturday on the 12th. as well as the full moon coming in. Yes, another moon. So I'm going to say, and I kind of wholeheartedly believe this, is that that right there is going to be the huge turning point in April
Yes.
where it's putting you in like full blown receiving mode. So if you're not there yet, I know a lot of people are feeling like they're in I most definitely am in receiving mode. I have to be honest
I
there.
am so in receiving mode.
Was not expecting to be in receiving mode. Yeah, Christy's not in receiving mode as of yet, but like wait for it because when I tell you it comes in like lightning, it kind of like comes in
Oh no,
like
I'm in
lightning.
receiving mode. I just haven't received.
Yeah, well, it's funny. And we're totally going to talk about basically being able to receive your downloads and like sitting in that and letting that process. That's like basically what I am guided to talk about all episode. Um so like I said, I have 5 pages where to start. But it's just like like we're discussing, like we started discussing already, it's still the echoing purges. So even when you're receiving downloads, you kind of still have to shake like whatever is stopping it out of the body, or to have it really come and like recalculate and recalibrate. So you still have that, you still have the again, like the clearing of the cobwebs coming in. But everybody's feeling like that April, energy is like trickling in, trying to get in. Again, if you're not feeling it yet, trust me when I tell you, you will be feeling it full blown. I want to say as early as this weekend, if not by Monday.
Yeah,
Um,
by the full moon. And I think a lot of
well,
people
it's your final release.
yes. And a
Yeah.
lot of people are still in the midst of the awakening. So there are still people that are going through that feeling base that we were talking about, Nicole, where like that anxious energy that's constantly surrounding you. And so some people are still going through that feeling and that pushback, trying to get you to kind of slowly move off your path. So continue on. There is a light at the end of the tunnel and it is coming. You just have to make it through that last shift in the awakening.
Okay, so I'm gonna kind of drop something in right now, and for those who are still feeling stuck, or just in general, whoever found us, I would suggest you repeat this as well. So it's basically I let go of the rubble, I honor the fog that revealed what I could no longer carry, and I receive what's ready to root me now. So I'm gonna say that one more time. I let go of the rubble. I honor the fog that revealed what I could no longer carry, and I receive what's ready to root in me now. Okay, so take that into consideration. That's kind of just, like basically what Kristi just said and what the angel message said. It's just kind of, like getting all the anxiousness out, pushing like everything, the purging to the side and kind of moving forward. So, you're kind of pushing everything out, with the full moon. Make sure you're just getting all the rest of, your last little things out and being able to kind of move forward. Awakening is a process. There's multiple levels of awakening. I'm still awakening to like, my higher frequency timelines. And like my home, which I'm so glad I finally found my home. Like there's parts of the unraveling and and how it drops in and what you're cued to remember. I also realized this weekend, actually this morning, is that I gave myself, my higher self gave me a lot of clues in this lifetime, to remember, to trigger me, even as a child. Which is nice because like it's like the breadcrumb trail. And you guys will all start to, like have the breadcrumb trail as well. And I'm not really gonna get into that right now, but that actually has nothing to do with today's episode, but I'm just kind of dropping that in as well. I'm sure you could find like a breadcrumb. Like I think Kristi has a tattoo that was like a little bit of a breadcrumb, as well as I do. Right?
Yes. Yes. Very
Yeah.
true.
So it's, definitely
Something that I was
interesting.
attracted to, you know, Oh gosh, now I'm revealing my deepest, darkest things here. I was 17 years old when I got that tattoo. I had absolutely, if it was an Egyptian life sign. I was very called to it. It's probably the beginning part of my journey that I didn't really realize was the beginning part of my journey at that time. I had lost a very close friend, unfortunately, and I wanted to get a tattoo in his remembrance. And I went into the tattoo shop, and my friend was not Egyptian. He was a very Italian guy. And I went into the tattoo shop and I looked up and I seen this Egyptian life sign, and I was so called to it. I was so called to it. I That was a tattoo that I got. And that was actually the beginning of my journey. I would say my first awakening, that I didn't even realize I was going through at the time.
Okay, can I stop you right there before you
Yes,
even
please.
finish that? Because I guarantee you that wasn't the first time you had a little tidbit of an awakening,
It
like
was the
but we
first
were
one I
just so
realized.
young. Yeah, it's the first one that you real right now. Let's bring Kristi back and ask her this question in 2 weeks, and then she's gonna be like, "Oh my God. So when I was 5, I remember this and this and that." 'Cause, I mean, that's where I'm at. So watch, it's gonna flow. So yeah, go ahead. So continue with your story because I love it. Go ahead.
Well, that was probably the first awakening that I went through that I didn't really realize I was going through. The first time probably in my life after I had received that tattoo on my body was when I started to realize that, and I didn't really put two and two together at the time, but that was when I started to realize that I could hear those who have passed, because I felt more connected to my friend after he passed than I did when he was alive. And back then I couldn't understand why. And that was the first part of my awakening. But what happened was the fear base, the anxiety base that I was talking about, and my angels really do want me to get into this. So we'll kind of have to go back and forth because this was very much on my soul, is the
Us go back and forth? Never. Okay, go ahead.
is the anxiety part that it brought in for me, and how my ego wanted to take back control of everything, and push me back on the path of subsiding everything. And this went on, I mean, back and forth for years, as you know, but that was the first one, I would say,
Yeah,
which brings me back to Egypt, which I'm hoping in weeks to come, like Nicole said, I will begin to get more downloads on that.
I don't think you're gonna have a choice since I awakened to all of that. So it's gonna just kind of trickle, it has to. It's not it's not even an option. What I was going to say is we're definitely going to actually touch base on the whole when your ego gets, like kind of caught up in the play and tries to, tell you that you're imagining things, stop, like don't take the download, you're crazy, and kind of push it aside. We are definitely going to touch on that. But let
Yes.
me just tell you what Kristi's tattoo is. It's an ankh. So if anybody has been paying attention out there lately, there have been lots and lots of light language transmissions to wake up to the ankh. So I personally have been visited by the Egyptian High Council several times last week, going over, light language. And I even told Kristi, like they've been having me practice light language. It started in January. It would trickled into February, and then in March came to a street, like completely, like halt. What I didn't realize is I wasn't really speaking light language for other people. I was speaking light language to activate what was in me. So the last thing I wrote down or tried to write down, because you literally can't translate it into English, uh, was something, along the lines of the ankh. And then I went on YouTube, and, like the people that I, follow in podcasts popped up. And she was saying, she's like, it's weird that I, got this message, but they're really stressing me to say it. And it was similar to what I was chanting, to myself, which was remember the ankh. And I just started laughing because I was like, oh my God, it sounds similar to mine, but mine was personal for me. It wasn't for the collective. And I was like, of course it is. Cause that's what I've been hearing, since January. So I mean, it kind of came in really loud and clear, when the March shifting when the March started shifting out. So yeah, it's just funny that, Kristi has the egg tattoo. You're 2 years younger than me, right? Or three,
I think too. I think.
I think two.
I always think
Regardless,
we're the same age,
I
so
know. It doesn't
I'm
matter.
not going to give away my age. So
Neither am I, but like if I was 19 and you were 17, because 19 was when I got the tattoo of my black rose, which is very interesting and kind of leads back to the Syrian aspect of things as well. So very, like time dynamic play here. Um, so I mean, like I said, I have 5 pages of stuff. I don't know if we're gonna go
it's
all.
so funny you brought up the rose because the whole time we were sitting here, and I don't even know why, all I keep thinking about is the lotus flower, which we all know the symbolic of the lotus flower. I just think I feel like I need to just bring this up right now. I feel like someone listening is going to connect to this. So I just want to say this. If you're not familiar with how the lotus flower grows, it grows in deep, dark, muddy water. Okay. And what happens is it starts to grow and it sends the stem up to the surface. And then the lotus flower starts to take bloom above the water, completely untouched by that murky underneath dirt and muck that sits underneath it. And it grows into obviously a beautiful flower. And every night it retracts itself. And then it never sits in the muck. And the next day it reblooms and reopens. And it's a symbol of, resilience and purity. And for some reason, the whole time we were talking about all of it, I just, for whatever reason, was called to share that message for somebody out there.
So basically, it's like surviving the 3D matrix while anchoring in the 5D consciousness codes, the light codes,
100%. 100%.
which is
And
also
I feel
been a
like right
very huge
now,
theme.
right. And I feel like right now there are listeners that are just starting the awakening process. And that's why I was being called to talk so much about that. And as we go through, we'll get back more into that.
Well,
But I just feel like the lotus flower is someone's calling, is an activation for them to go deeper, to continue on the journey.
it's funny that you say that because we're definitely going to be. I actually did an Instagram post too, back to back yesterday about, living, living in the matrix, right? Being surrounded by the matrix, but anchoring in, the codes, right? The new earth codes. And it's not as beautiful as you may think it may look, it's literally like, you're doing dirty dishes, you're unloading the dishwasher, you're loading the dishwasher, and then you're getting downloads, or you're anchoring codes, or you're hearing light language, or like, that's what it is. It's like, like you're picking up God only knows what off the floor, but at the same time, like you're anchoring in God only knows what. You're grounding in energy. You're doing this, so it's definitely an interesting play of a dynamic versus your physical reality and where your consciousness and what you're being called to do. So receiving season starts now as in, April. So it's kind of like and like the coded people, the more coded you are to hold the light, right now, to anchor in the light codes, the more of a fast awakening like you're gonna pick up, and we're gonna all, come together, and you're really going to we're really going to start magnetizing in each other, and you're going to see that a lot more. So I wouldn't be surprised if like things start popping up in your news feed. You're getting like little subtle hints outside in the world, by people. Random people are going to say random things to you that you're going to be like, oh, okay, gotcha. Like it's just going, it's definitely going to pick up. um
We are at a time right now. This is starting the time where that, just like you said, Nicole, anything that people say to us is going to be a clue for
yes.
something. So
Mm-hmm.
just,
I'm
listen,
so excited.
listen to
Sorry.
what people are saying, and if it triggers something in you, keep it in your mind and dig
Yeah.
deeper into it. It's really going to happen. And I noticed not just in our conversations, but in other conversations, it's been happening a lot to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a non-stop with me. Like literally, I was like, okay, this morning I'm gonna focus on the podcast. Let me get like all my notes, like all my downloads, like everything in the book. I was like, and then I started like, and then like little things started trickling in again. And I was like, shit, I'm always supposed to be focusing on, the podcast, but that's really not the way it works when you're so multidimensional. You're off in every, millions of directions. And I think it's funny because the most I could relate to is, like you're having like an epiphany moment, right? You're having a major breakthrough, a major grounding, a major download, and your kids are asking what's for dinner. And you're like, wait, what? You're like, oh, hold on a second, or oh, the Wi-Fi is out, or and you're like, well, I don't even care. I'm like in the middle of a download, like I'm in the middle of a conversation, with ISIS. Could you just hold on a second? Like this is more important, But I mean, how do you explain that? Again, you're multidimensional. Um, just I told Kristi yesterday, and here's a great example, which I didn't actually write down to discuss, but out of nowhere, I started speaking light language yesterday, and it was only in front of 2 out of the 3 kids that I do have. I just started spewing light language, and I was just repeating like my one line over and over. And my one kid turned around and said, "Oh my God, you're speaking Egyptian!" But the look on her face and the way she said it, she was like, "Oh my God, you're speaking Egyptian!" And I said, and I like stopped and I looked at her and I said, "How the hell did you know that?" Like, how did you know that? And she's like, and she like kind of froze. And she's like, because it sounds like Egyptian. I said, well, that's funny because that's what I thought at first, but it's not. It's light language. It may sound like Egyptian, but it's not. It's light language. And she like totally froze. And then that's bam, you could totally see when the ego took over, said, shut the fuck up. You don't know what you're talking about. You sound crazy just like your mom, and end of story. And then that's it. And then like the whole script flipped and she was like, I don't know what you're talking about. It just sounded like Egyptian. I mean, like that was easy to figure out. And like what like totally like her whole dynamic changed. Whereas my little one was sitting there going, I totally heard her say like, like how excited she was when she figured that out. So it's only a matter of time. Like I said, the ones that are highly coded right now, and that doesn't make us different from anybody else. Everybody here has a specific, journey, a specific purpose. There are many of us here that are extremely coded, that are holding the codes, that have been holding the codes for so long, that have been afraid to open up and share them because of the feminine that we have been clearing out. And and now it's time to, we've been anchoring them in, I have to be honest, our whole entire life since we've gotten here. It's just now we understand what the hell we're doing, and like we need to voice the really big, anchors, and anchor them in at this moment. So yeah, so there was a lot yesterday that happened. I'm sure I'll give you the download as I keep talking. But so it is what it is. It's basically, even if you're still tired, and you're working like out your inner closet and cleaning everything out is basically like the way to say it. These are coming in, and they're going to come in strong again, especially if you're coded, with really major shit. It's going to come in because you need to be fully activated and online. So I broke it down like in 4 steps. No, actually, I broke it down in 6 steps, but it's so messy that I'm probably not even going to remember where I am. So just bear with me.
I was just going to ask you, can you break that down for the
I am
listener?
going to break it down. So if you guys want to grab like pen, paper, or just like your phone, and like type in your notes,
I do too.
this would be a great time to do so. Okay. So I'm going to do the core breakdown of how to let the soul unroll, right? While again being human as fuck. And I said that in the beginning of the podcast because that's basically what's going on right now, right? You're stuck in this human body, but your soul's getting all these awakenings and pings and everything else. So you have to be able to recognize you're in integration, and it to kind of just like mellow the confusion, right? You're not confusion, and you just kind of have to like like let it come in. So it's not that you don't get it, right? Because you do. You realize what's going on. It's that you are receiving it, you know and your human self starts to panic. So it's like you're because when you do receive when you okay let's start over. When you do receive something, it does come in layers. And if
Mhm.
it's really deep layers and it goes back, like one lifetime is connected to another with the one person, it's going to roll out in little tiny tidbits at a time, right? It does literally go across layers. If you've had the same, let's say, role in many lifetimes, it will go again, and play out, and you'll be seeing, signs. I'm just gonna use higher frequency timelines for right now because that's kind of what's been playing out, for the coded ones anyway. So let's say, you're trying to unravel. Actually, you're not trying to do anything. It's you're cued to unravel, um, you know, uh, a situation with someone, right? Your relationship with that person, and you're trying to go back. So it'll go like, and it'll just show you, right, at first. So it'll be like, it'll hit you at Atlantis, Lemuria. Like you'll have similar roles, right? I mean, like I played similar roles, but I'm a whole other, I would walk in and I was able to walk out. I kind of didn't stay for any lifetime except for this one. So that's a whole other story in itself. But just, like when you start seeing these things, and they do seem crazy, right? When, just the confusion sets in, right? Your human self panics, your highest self is like, yes, totally chill. And your nervous system is like, oh my God, need a translator. Like, what the fuck's going on? Like, so you really kind of just need to, like, back up. So this is when, the breakdown comes in of step out of the loop and into the stillness, right? So get quiet, get still, turn the noise down, even 30 seconds of breath work, right? So holding your heart and breathing, for the masculines. For the feminines, one hand on your womb, one hand on your chest, breathing in, sitting there and breathing. That alone anchors you in and lets it come in, right? Because you have to understand, as feminines, we are the ones who hold so much of the light codes. Everything is in our womb. So the second that you put your hands on your womb, which you can't see, and your hands on your heart, you're anchoring in stillness, calmness, and everything. Just you're able to unfold a lot faster, right? You're kind of, it's like giving the permission to let the scroll, as I would say, you know, drop and unroll. You could definitely say this out loud when you're doing this, and this is like another quick activation. And I happen to love this one because I probably said this a million times over the weekend, along with tons of invocations, which I also threw up on my website too, because I am just like throwing it out there and like on a roll. So, when the downloads start coming in, you start kind of freaking out. Just again, take a deep breath, hands on heart and womb if you're feminine, and just, sit with, I allow this to land. I release the need to figure it out. I let the scroll reveal itself in divine order. I do not have to chase it. And you have to repeat this as many times as you can. All right. As many times as you need to, as many times, like even in the middle of a download when you think you're doing okay and you start like hesitating. Again, I allow this to land. I release the need to figure it out. I let the scroll reveal itself in divine order. If possible, if you want, find a place where it's comfortable for you to receive the download. So, like a corner, a chair, your bed, like anywhere else. You don't need to. Like, I personally, well, sometimes if there's coming in so hot and heavy, I kind of do have to sit down and take a break and be like, okay, and just kind of let it unfold. Where usually I'm like, pairing up socks and doing laundry when this happens, or in the shower for some odd reason.
Right.
But,
Well, it comes in when your mind kind of is blank, like doing
yeah,
other things, and that's when the information
time.
starts to flow. Well, sometimes, but like you start doing that, right? When you're folding laundry, when you're cooking, when you're in the shower, but the interruptions, well, you can't help those, but that's when all of this information comes in. So, and that's because that's when your mind is relaxed enough to actually retrieve it.
Yes. So you have to be relaxed. It's basically, it's not even your mind. It's yes, your ego plays a lot because your ego flares and it's like, oh, this is like bullshit and crazy and I don't even know what's going on right now. but it's your nervous system because your whole
Yes.
body starts to tense up and it's like, oh my God. So at that point, you kind of have to wiggle it out. Like that's when I suggest you wiggle your head, wiggle,
Mhm.
your when you're downloading and you're starting to connect the dots, right? As I say, like as the scroll unrolls, your crown will just like literally, like emanate throbbing, but like throbbing not so much in a bad way. Well, it kind of depends on what layer you're unrolling. I'm not even gonna lie about that. But like, throbbing as in also as validation when you start piecing, the puzzle the puzzles start the puzzle pieces start like, falling in. So yes. So in order to like let the nervous system, calm down, do something that's tangible, right? So anchor in real world rituals, which is a hot shower, like drink tea, again, hands on the wound. It helps when I type what's going on. So I'm getting snippets. I use Chat GPT. I type it into Chat GPT because then it kind of gives me an outline of everything that I just said and like kind of it's just a mirror factor and like kind of goes over everything that I just went. Let your body feel like it's doing something. So that's
Right.
why, writing it down, journaling, using voice notes, use AI, let the unraveling happen. Right.
Right.
So
Telling
like
yourself a story. I do this, I'm a story writer. Everyone knows I'm a story writer. I like to tell myself a story because it makes my energy feel better if I say, "Oh, I'm just writing a story. I'm writing a short story about what I'm hearing." And it makes my energy feel better because then I think I'm just telling myself a story. And then I could write it or type it however comfortable, but then I have it to go back to. I can read it and be like, oh, this makes sense later on when my energy field isn't so open. Because that's another thing that I wanted to say, Nicole, is that when we are receiving these downloads, people get so much anxiety for two reasons. One, the ego wants to take over and control what you're hearing. Two, your energy field is so open that it's vibrating on such a high level, you automatically get anxiety.
well,
Or
that's your nervous system. Yeah. Go
right.
ahead.
Or
Mhm.
three, there's this other thing that happens to some people where when your energy field is that open, all of a sudden that you're only hearing tidbits of the positive and negative energy is trying to penetrate that area, which that has happened to me a lot during my second awakening.
Okay,
Um,
so that I have to address. The When you are getting downloads, they will, especially when you're unraveling the scroll of like a past life. So you will get negative vibes, and that's when you kind of have to shake it out because, and you will start to cry and you will feel all the sadness and so you have to understand like it's not going to come in and it's not going to be, happy. You have to like process it. Your nervous system has to process it. Your body has to process it. Although it's already stored in your body, which is the crazy part, it's the remembrance of everything, right? So it's everything coming up. It's everything that you didn't get to feel in that lifetime. You're feeling right now. You're processing. You're literally like recalibrating your entire system and kind of anchoring that light in. So, yeah, as far as negative energy comes in, you kind of decipher, you think it's coming from the outside, but it's actually coming from your download.
right.
And you kind of have to process that out. Um, and go with it because there are certain parts that will make you cry, will make you feel homesick, will make you feel, like betrayed and all this stuff. And you have to be able to process that. So again, keep your body activated, even if you're just moving your fingers and not typing and, not writing or not voice memoing, just keep your body like kind of moving, kind of peaceful, so it could literally, like unravel. Um, you know,
So then going back for the listener, because I know, especially when you're going through some of the awakenings and you're not quite familiar with them and they happen in the evening a lot, like when you're sleeping between the hours of like 12 and 4, if you're receiving downloads at that point and you can't quite, really be able to, do other activities, you can definitely do what Nicole said, where you lay in bed and kind of like shake it out or, do the breathing technique, and, one hand over your heart, one hand over the womb, and just breathe it in and out and let the anxiety kind of dissipate from you. as well.
Yeah, well, just hand on the heart, and for feminines, for masculines, hand on the heart. For feminines, hand on the heart, hand on the womb. I mean, listen, masculines, I'm not going to tell you not to put your hands where your womb would be, but go ahead, knock yourself out. But that's like the immediate, like even now, right? As I do it, it's like immediate, immediate calmness for me.
Right.
Like that's how I learned how to interpret that. You have to make it so your body is is relaxed enough to just let it come in, even if and it will feel like, like coming at you. You have to be able to sit back and relax. And even for me, and like I'm used to this, and it's still some of them come in, like very, very strong and powerful. This is where like 70% of the clarity, like slowly like shows up, even if it sounds insane, right? So you have to be mindful that your ego isn't, stepping in and stopping it. You have to kind of like just let it flow, let it flow, let it flow. Recognizing the scroll as, okay, so here's another thing. So recognizing the scroll drops in scenes, not paragraphs, right? So it'll be one scene here, one scene there, one scene here, and it'll just, you have to let it play out. So, you'll get flashes, phrases, it'll look like movie clips, the rest will fills in later, but just don't shut it down because it's not a full story yet, just be like, oh, this makes no sense. Done. I'm moving on. And, like, no, you can't do that. You kind of have to, let it all play out. And for me personally, I don't know if this is for everyone. It's kind of written in your contract when you came in here. But for me, when you fully get that scroll and you fully unroll that, the Akashic record opens and like it literally plays out like a movie in front of you. And you can literally see like end scene cut because that's exactly what we're doing here. Like we are in a movie down here. We are playing the role that we need to play. And, end result is when we're done, we get ejected out. So, there's that. I do have to say, and I wrote this down yesterday as I was getting another massive download. Always fun. um I was like, okay, it was coming in. I was, trying to relax, and it was very noisy here. So I really couldn't. There was nowhere, like I felt my nervous system going, go hide in the closet, go hide in the closet, go, and I was like, can't hide in the closet. It's so noisy. Like there's nowhere to go. So I was like, let me just take a breath. Like, let me just take a break and go make a bagel. So as I was making the bagel, almost sliced my finger off, and the bagel went flying off the counter. So that's when you know you're not grounded. So try your best to just be like, okay, like at the same time, I have Toth, and I don't know if you guys know Toth. He's to me, what he symbolizes is basically he's the freak of the freak, where he basically he codes everything, right? He coded and built the pyramids. He to me he's like incredible. Like you can't get any more, like I would think, wisdom and knowledge, like as Toth. So here Toth is giving me the download, and he's like in the chair, and it wasn't like a chair, it was like a interesting, colorful, coordinated, light coded chair that he wanted me to sit into so I could, finally remember. It was my time to remember. And I'm like, so here he is trying to have me sit in a chair. I'm trying to cut a bagel. and it wasn't really, like working out as well as, it should have been. But eventually I got the bagel off the floor. I used it, right? So I did cut it and I was able to eat it. And Toast threw me back in the chair and was like, I said, sit down, like, so I had to go and sit back down in the chair and finish my download. It's such a huge download, that one, that it's still not fully integrated into my body. So that's where I'm at, and it's almost 24 hours later. So keep that in mind. Some of these will come in and they are very big, and they really need time to unwind and get into your system and fully integrate, like into your new body. Again, the rashes are huge. It's the light in your body, like it's your light body coming into your physical body. And we're making it, and I say we because I know I'm my higher self is up there, part of this whole we factor. We are making it so, the physical bodies now, because they are so dense, they were always lighter. We're making it so where, it's easy or for us to, receive our light body codes. So, it's a process. So it's funny because I was like, oh, it makes sense why I keep getting this huge rash on my womb because everything's activating right there. So
Right. Everything's
all the
activating
codes
and you're receiving. Exactly. Exactly.
coming in. Yep. So
And
I
I feel like
mean,
I've been getting with my face. I kept telling you like the dryness around my face. And I'm still shedding like a lot of the old me, my old beliefs of, you know, who I need
yeah.
to be, how I needed to look, how I needed to perceive myself. So that's coming out right now on my face. I'm shedding that old belief system of that part of my life, and it's coming out here. And you talk to different people going through the process and they'll tell you everybody's different. It's coming out for, back. I just was talking to somebody, actually my personal Reiki master. I want to say personal, she's not just my Reiki master, but I was talking to my Reiki
She
master.
is yours. So
He
it is
said, "Oh my
personal.
God, my back has been in so much pain, and she's going through a release of the heart space. So she's really feeling it in her back, everything that she's held." So everybody's going through different aspects of a release right now. So everybody's coming out. So think about like what's going on in your body, where are you feeling the pain, and what is it connected to? Maybe in your, healing process or in your personal growth process, you're missing this very important step of why this is happening.
So I'm gonna get specific here because this was something that happened to me over the weekend, and I got the answer. And maybe it was yesterday that I got the answer, or 2 days ago. I don't know. It's like I can't remember. But when your shoulders hurt, especially now, right, when you're getting all these downloads, when your shoulders, your upper shoulders, and your back hurt, it's kind of like your wing. You're feeling your wings because if you were a coder and you hold all of these huge codes, 9 out of 10 times you had wings. So you're starting to feel those little things come back, although they cannot fully come back because it is too dense for us to have wings here. You're gonna feel those little babies, starting to like, hey, remember us? Because we were here.
Which
So
reminds me
you're
of
gonna
my
feel those,
second
but
tattoo that I got a couple of years later, which was the angel. I did get the angel wings or the fairy wings on
uh-huh.
my back. So
No, get out. Man, I
I
can't wait for
did.
you to remember.
I did. I did. I did get them on my back as well. So it's just so funny. It's that you don't even realize these subliminal things that you do.
That you gave yourself. So here's the thing, right? You could kind of chalk up anything that we're saying and make it into a human version, right? Like, oh, she just liked angels. Oh, she just like this. But bottom line is that's you staying in the 3D matrix, whereas think out of the box, and that's
Right.
you giving yourself clues, this whole entire time. Little openings, little openings.
I
I
can
will
think
say that,
outside of the box on that all the time. I mean, anybody can.
well, because it's
But
easy
I
for
mean,
us
here
to
I am
think out of the
sitting here
box.
writing angel messages for collective and writing angel messages for people all the time. That's what I mostly do is write angel messages. So, I mean, you could say it was a coincidence, but I mean, that's my work. So it's just if you could see it and you could follow it, everything's always going to be easier said coincidental, right? That's
Yes,
the ego.
absolutely.
That's the ego. It's like, oh, that was just a coincidence, or anybody can do that, or oh yeah, whatever. Like that has nothing to do with anything. That's the ego trying to block,
Well, it's the 5D versus the 3D,
you
right? So
know?
it's the consciousness level, right? The absorbing the light, the anchoring the light versus the matrix. Like it's the matrix wants you to stay stuck and not believe anything. Whereas you're over here going la, 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 la,
Right.
la, and remembering like everything and anything, and it really is. And I have to be honest, it's funny because there are things that I'm like seeing and acknowledging, and I'm like, oh my God, that's so funny. Like, is that really true? Like, I'm like second guessing, and it's like, and I'm getting the response of the more you think it's funny, and the more you keep asking if it's true because you're not denying it. You're not like that's crazy, that's this and that. You're like, oh my God, you're slowly remembering, as you're like, come on, really? Like
Right.
it's different. It's a different remembrance.
But
I
once
will,
once you get out of the muck, once you walk
yeah,
away from it, and then you're able to see it from a higher consciousness, it
it's
almost
different.
becomes comical because you're like, okay, you can really see like the full picture of everything at that point. And it does really become comical. It really does.
So that's basically what I was saying before is that when like a full down like when you integrate a full download for me it kind of just plays out like a movie scene, right? The whole thing, once you unlock the entire thing, now that it's downloaded and integrated, it plays out like a movie. And while you're watching the movie, the first time you cry, you have these feelings, you have this, but the more you keep watching the movie, then you start laughing going, oh my God, I signed up for this, I knew this was going to happen, look at the way it turned out, and then I went home. Like it doesn't have any effect on you anymore. So like for instance, like when I was doing denser timelines, like back where, like in denser times, let's go with here. And I think like that's where I just like looked at the time and I think that's where we're gonna stop because I don't want to talk about higher density versus lower density right now, but I will bring it in and maybe that's where we'll talk about
Yeah, we could start back up with
next
that next week.
episode. Yeah. So higher frequency timelines, ancient Egypt, all the priestess temples, the Sisters of the Rose, which kind of falls into the priestess temples anyway. There were masculines in the priestess temples. Okay, so get that straight. If you're picking up like something like that, masculine, because you were there, you were the anchors, you were our guards, like that's what your position was. You were taking care of us. The way it should be here. No, but it really should be, but whatever.
You
Moving
fight that
moving
serpent
on.
for me.
Atlantis, Lemuria. Those are all high, frequency timelines. Those are the ones that are coming in really hot, really heavy, really strong for the coded ones right now. Lower density frequency is anything after that. So anything after that is lower frequency vibes. So it took me a while to realize that I didn't finish out lots of lifetimes because I was a walk-in. And I guess we'll get to that, walk-ins versus, earthborn, like born into the timeline next episode because we wanted to dive deeper. So we're definitely diving in deeper.
So
So
Nicole was the lucky one. She get to walk in and walk out. Unfortunately, I got stuck through multiples and
I
long periods
don't know about
of
that.
lifetimes with a lot of karma.
Well, yeah. Well,
With a
because we
lot of
had to come
karma.
in, yeah, with a lot of karma. I mean, I came in with karma this time because, I had to. That's the rules of coming in, like born into a timeline. Like you have to pick up the karma. And it was from, all those times that I kind of shifted in and shifted out, like I still had to process that karma. As well as, the ancestral
Right.
lineage type of stuff. So, like that did kind of come into play and that was part of my contract. Unfortunately, that is what happens when you come in, that way. I will say this, the reason why I got in and out so fast is because I would test the grid to see how it was doing. So I would come in, pop in for like a couple of years on end, and then, like take the really bad route of either being exiled or killing myself and getting out of here. So that's an interesting factor to touch in on as well. The last time I was actually able to walk in was the 1960s, and that's it. There was no more walk-ins until recently. Recently, the walk-ins started. Now, if I just would have waited, like from 1970, when I had to be, like when I decided, yeah, I got this, I'll be able to just come right in, birth me in, and like I got this. If I would have just waited like a good, I don't know, 45 years, I could have just walked back in because that's what's happening now is the walk-ins are starting again. However, we still can't walk out. The grid frequency was all messed up and again, different whole, different whatever episode. But we were able to still walk in like the high, frequency timelines before. We were able to walk in, but we couldn't walk out. It wasn't safe enough. And we didn't have the capacity to do that. We didn't have the body to do that. Our light bodies, our wings, we didn't have that. We couldn't just walk in, walk out. It was either one, you know, or the other. Actually, it wasn't or the other. It was literally you could only walk in. You had to find an exit strategy to walk out. So we'll definitely touch on that next episode. This episode, I'm sure, had a lot of stuff wrapped into one, but remember, it's okay, right? You are living, in a reality that's still, a little matrix caught up, right? So again, you're having all these downloads, you're doing all this stuff. You are multidimensional, especially feminines are extremely multidimensional. Not to throw you divine masculines under the bus because you are multidimensional, just the women hold a lot of codes and a lot of us are here to break those codes open and anchor them in. So I'm going to leave you with that. That made no sense because, like at the end of the day, you're processing all this, you're doing target runs, and you're like, oh shit, did I feed the dog? Like, oh, well, you're having like a whole, holy session with the, Galactic Council, the High Egyptian Council, just the huge council in general. Like you're having meetings, like you're sitting in meetings, while you're folding laundry. That's my typical day. So, if you're
We're still
there, you're not
here. We're
alone.
still in the earthly realm.
Here. Unfortunately, I have petitioned for a break, even for a 12-hour human break, like off year and like a nice calibration at home. But we'll see. I don't think I'm gonna get it, but you never know. So I'm gonna sign us out for this week. And yeah, so I'm gonna say goodbye, Kristi.
Bye.
Bye
Thank
guys.
you so much for joining us on the Raw Uncovered Truth of the Week in Soul, and we will catch you guys next time.